So the other really basic tools that you need are, this is a hive tool. This is a J-hook hive tool. Sometimes they don't have this little scoopy thing on it. And maybe, we could show how to use it in just a minute maybe. So this is the essential, whatever version of this. There's longer ones, a little more simple ones. They have like a beveled edge here. These are super important because you'll get in your hive and your frames will be all stuck together. You might not even be able to get your lid off, and you use this to pry open things. This is also can be used to lift up frames. You'll use it all the time. They're fairly inexpensive, definitely under $10. I think maybe even $4 or something for a super basic one. So get a couple. They get lost easily. They seem to just disappear. So this is super important, essential. If you lose them, you can use like some kind of paint scraper thing, but it's not as great. You'll regret it.
Do you want to demo that here with these frames?
Sure, yeah. So lifting, this is my favorite one because it makes it really easy to lift out frames. You just stick it under the edge and lift up, and then you can grab it. Do the same thing over here. Grab it and pull out your frame. It also, we'll talk about this in the live class, I think, but propolis, and maybe you talked about it a little too, but propolis is kind of this sticky glue that gets stuck all over the hive box and the frames, and usually these will be completely glued together, so you can go in and kind of pry them apart. You might have to go in and clear stuff out here. You can use it to scrape along here. Super important and helpful. I really like this tool, especially when you have a really heavy frame that's full of honey, or it's kind of slippery or whatever. You can also use it to pick up frames. Yeah. So you go, it's kind of the same. You still will have to loosen it with the hive tool, but then you can just go in and grab it and pull it straight out. So I like it because it has a really a more solid grip when you need it. That is a heavy one. Cool. This is a bee brush. The bee brush you use when you're pulling out a frame, it has a bunch of bees on it. Maybe you want to, you're trying to look at the cells on the frame, so you just very gently brush the bees off. It's super soft, doesn't hurt them. It does annoy them somewhat, so you don't want to be in there really aggressively brushing all over the bees, but it's a nice thing to have. Also really inexpensive. A lot of the basic tools you need for beekeeping, you can find them used really easily from other beekeepers who have surplus things. But generally, most of these individual tools are pretty inexpensive new as well, unless you get really fancy handmade ones, which is cool too. So a smoker is another really, really essential tool. You don't necessarily have to use it all the time, but it's a good thing to have on hand when you're doing more invasive things in the beehive or less invasive things. And this smoker has been around for a really long time, and the style of it hasn't changed too much. You basically start a little fire in here, and I have, this is kind of a fiber material that I like to use a lot to get things started. Pine needles, dried pine needles are the most amazing thing if you think ahead and gather a bunch. What you want is a nice thick but cool smoke to come out of your smoker. And what the smoke is doing is masking the pheromones, not letting the bees smell the pheromones that they would be communicating with each other, saying, hey, there's somebody in our hive, go get them, or that kind of thing. I've also heard recently that bees think there's a fire, and so they fill their bellies with honey, and they're busy doing that, not paying attention to you. So two different schools of thought. There's a lot of things about bees that we're still discovering all the time. But it is really helpful. Usually you just smoke the entrance a little bit, smoke the top a little bit when you're getting in there, and then you just set it down near your hive, and the smoke will be around, but not super heavy on the bees. You don't want to smoke the bees a ton because you could end up harming them. So super important. And you can use lots of different materials. You can buy lots of fancy smoker fuel, but really pine needles are awesome. So this is a box. When you're getting bees the first time, you'll generally either get a nuke, which Tyler's going to talk about in a minute, or you will get a package of bees. And a package is just a box full of bees like this, all flying around. This is the little queen box cage. So there will be a queen inside of here, and queen is essential for your hive, the most essential bee. And it'll be corked at the end. Sometimes there's a little piece of candy and a cork. Sometimes there's just a cork, and you can take that out and put a piece of candy in. That allows the worker bees to slowly eat their way in. But they put the queen in this little cage because they want the worker bees to get acclimated to her pheromones, her smell, and they want her to be protected. And they also want to guarantee that you know that there is a queen in here. So this will be kind of tucked on the ledge of the box, and then this will have food, sugars, syrup kind of stuff in it. It has little holes in the bottom where the bees can lap that out, and it will be, I don't know if I can do this correctly, but this will be kind of plugging up the hole there. Package bees are less expensive than nukes, which Tyler will talk about and why that is, but they're pretty easy to install even for a beginner. Some people do a couple hard shakes and shake them into the hive. I like to just flip over. You take out the can and you flip it over on top of your frames, and then put another box around it, put the lid on it, and they slowly make their way out. You also take the queen out and kind of tuck her in between some frames and let her slowly get introduced. And you come back and check on it a couple days later and make sure everybody's in there, and you take this out and you're good.
So this is a fancy kind of nuke holder, but multifunctional tool container as well. But the difference between a nuke and a package is that when you get it, it comes with frames inside, bees with honey, with eggs, and with a queen actively moving in that. The queen isn't separate like it is in the package. It's like been a hive that has been divided. One reason it's more expensive, like this is just loose bees. It's a lot easier to shake some bees into a box and throw a queen in there than it is to kind of handle the processes of separating a hive and making sure you're not killing one. So nukes will all come with 4 frames. So you'll have 4 frames in here full of wax, honey, brood, queen, worker bees, and you get to pick it up. It's usually pretty tight. Like I take them in my car, make sure they don't fall over, but maybe end up with 1 or 2 bees out. Usually I'm wearing my veil as I'm driving, which is a kind of funny thing to do out in the world. Take the nuke to your hive. You'll have set up maybe your hive, if you're using 10 frame, to have 6 frames already in it on the outside portion. And then you'll take your 4 frames from in here and put them in the same way they're arranged in here into your hive, just nested within the 6 new frames you have in there. That's just to kind of not change up the bees world. If someone came and took your first floor and put it in the basement, and your basement floor is the 3rd floor, you'd be kind of freaked out. And so kind of giving them a nice insert into a box that has frames in it that have wax drawn out already, right? That's an advantage, that you're not giving them empty things, you're giving them wax drawn out, so they're not having to build that. And so then with the nuke, you don't have to take out a cap. I just literally do it really quick, calmly. Sometimes I'll look just to inspect that the queen's there, but otherwise put my top on, walk away from it for maybe even a week, and give them some time to adjust to it. But yeah, the nukes run in the 150, 160 170 range.
Packages are about 130 is usually what I see.
Yep.
So, the other way that people get bees is capturing swarms, but that's definitely an advanced, unless you have a beekeeper friend that can capture a swarm for you. That's more of an advanced thing. I have this little wrap. Tyler talked about wintertime stuff, putting the mouse guard on and making the entrance a little smaller. I just got this last year, so it's just an insulated wrap that goes around your bottom boxes. You usually have 2 deep boxes, or a deep and a medium over the winter, and this fits nicely over those. And helps keep them warmer. It's very, like Tyler said, condensation, moisture in the hive, especially in the winters, is a big challenge for sure. This year, my bees survived the winter, so I felt good about putting this on, but it all depends. Nebraska weather, wild fluctuations, sometimes super cold. It's hard to know. We do have a pretty high loss in Nebraska of hives over the winter, so don't feel terrible if you lose your bees in the wintertime, but this can help. There are also lots of DIY sort of ways to do insulation. This one's just really nice because it's got Velcro and it pops on, and can reuse it over and over again.
Yeah, stapled tar paper,
Yes.
plastic. People do all sorts of things and have their own, with beekeeping, it's always, people are very specific to what has worked for them. And so finding what works for you is probably the most important piece.